You know, sometimes I had to seriously wonder about me. For instance, this morning, I knew that there was a front coming through. It was going to come through pretty early in the morning. It was predicted to come through around 8:30. So I wanted to beat the sun, and I go down there and I get there at daylight. And I launch the boat, and it's um, it's raining, pouring down rain, matter of fact. And I normally run three cameras. Well, only two of them two of them are not waterproof. Only one's totally waterproof. And what I should have done is I should have put the card and the battery in it while it was in the drive, like here at the house or in the truck. No, I take it out in the lake with me, like with the rest of them, and they're in a waterproof container, and I can't even fire up the waterproof camera because I've got to open it up to put the SD card and a battery in it. So the first, I think it was at least 7 or 8 fish, or maybe more. Anyway, it was several fish. I never got on camera at all. I just couldn't. It was raining so hard I couldn't get the camera in operation. So it was well after the rain had quit here when I finally got a well. I got a break in the rain. In other words, the front's almost here. When I finally got the camera up and running. So live and learn, I reckon. But anyway, I caught several fish, several good fish this morning before I got the camera up and running. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. So like I said, I'm trying to beat the front. I want to beat that sun because good fishing revolves around the front, the cold fronts. And your best fishing is the leading edge of that cold front. When you got your darkest, rainiest, cloudiest conditions, that's your best chance to catch a fish. But as soon as that sun comes out and hits that water, it's like you flipped a switch. The fishing just turns off. So when I got down there this morning, the fishing was pretty good. It wasn't great, but it's pretty good. Uh, it wasn't as good as I was hoping for, but probably better than I had a right to expect. So anyway, I caught several good fish. But before the rain stopped, then I could start recording anything. But like I said, the fishing, your best chance to catch a fish is before the front passes through. And once that front passes through, that day and the next day or two, it's going to be tough fishing. And how fish react to weather and water conditions is you can learn that from if you go to Don Dixon Fishing on YouTube. Don teaches Buck Perry's Complete School of Fishing, and one of the major subjects it's covered is how fish react to weather and water conditions. So do yourself a favor, go to Don Dixon Fishing on YouTube and really learn what makes a fish tick. Because Buck Perry figured this stuff out back in the 1940s, and Don teaches Buck's Complete School of Fishing. It's the truth. It's how you really can go about catching fish. And the crazy thing about it is, precious few people know it or follow it. It's amazing how something that really works, how you can catch fish on a consistent basis. Doesn't Nobody pays any attention to it, but they'll fall for every gimmick in the country that costs them a fortune, and they can go out here and beat their brains out trying to catch a fish according to what the latest pros had on TV. Of course, they're trying to sell you a product. They're really not trying to teach you how to catch a fish. So It's always amazing how to me, I find that something really works. You can't hardly give it away. But if it's just a gimmick, uh, a well-marketed gimmick, I might add, then the public will go for it. And what people don't realize is these pros in the tournaments and the shows they got on television, that's a marketing campaign. That's all in the world it is. They're trying to sell you a product. Nobody but Don Dixon on TV is trying to really teach you how to catch fish. My purpose here is just to try to inspire you to go to Don Dixon. I don't have the time or the inclination or anything else to try to put Buck's Complete School of Fishing up on YouTube. I'm not even qualified. I graduated from school, but I'm not, I'm not an instructor, but Don is. So do yourself a favor. Go to Don Dixon Fishing on YouTube and learn how you can be a consistently successful fisherman. You'll be doing yourself the greatest favor that you've ever done or anybody's ever thought about doing for you when it comes to your fishing. So do yourself that favor. Go to Don Dixon Fishing. And when you go to his channel, don't start at the end. You know, remember it's a school, so you got to start in kindergarten. You don't want to start in fourth year of college. So scroll all the way back to the very beginning of his channel and go video by video. And I can guarantee you, you will learn how to catch any kind of fish, anywhere in the world, at any time of the year, on a consistent basis. But if you're satisfied with the meager catches that you're making right now, then just ignore it. Just don't do it. If you're satisfied with what you're catching now, then don't bother to do what I suggest. But if you're not satisfied with your catches and you really want to learn more, then go to that Don's channel and he will definitely teach you how to become a much better fisherman than what you are right now. He will teach you how to become a consistently successful fisherman. So one of the things that Buck says and Buck teaches and Don teaches is that fishing is usually tough, and it just gets tougher. It's going to be a rare time when you can go to the lake and you find the fish up and active. When you get there, they're just tearing up jack. You know, everybody on the lake's catching fish, the fish are biting. That don't happen very often. It's usually the other way around. So fishing generally is tough, and it gets tougher. And the good days, the times when the fish are really biting, that's icing on the cake. So when the fish are really biting, actually anybody can catch fish. Just anybody throwing most any kind of lure here and yonder is going to catch fish too. So, but to be successful on a consistent basis that's a relative term. What is success? Success on a day when fish are biting, everybody catches fish. That's no problem. It's fishing on those tough days. When you can make a catch on the tough days, that's a different story. But if by following Buck Perry's teachings, as taught by Don Dixon, or in the Buck's printed material, which you can get from buckspoonplugging.com, you can get his book and his full course on Buck's own School of Fishing. If it's a tough day, which it's generally going to be, like I said, it's going to be tough, and it's probably going to get tougher. If you can make a catch on those tough days, you're flying. And that being, if you go to the lake and everybody you see and everybody you talk to caught nothing, and you caught 2 or 3 fish, it was a success. The easy fishing don't really teach you anything. It's the tough days. It's the tough fishing that are teaching days. But you can learn to correctly evaluate the situation. You can look at the weather and water conditions, the time of the year, and everything else, and you can make a pretty good decision on what it's going to take to catch fish that day. And when you can consistently catch fish, like on terribly tough days, you catch a few fish. On the tough days, you catch several fish. But you'll catch fish most of the time. Your fishless days will be few and far between. There can be situations, there can be weather and water conditions that are so tough that nobody makes a catch, including you. But those days are going to be few and far between. Most of the time when you go to the lake, you're not going to be wondering, you reckon I'm going to catch any fish today? That's probably not even going to enter your mind. It's going to be, how many am I going to catch, and how long is it going to take to find them? That's going to be the question in your mind. You're going to be going about your fishing in a logical, orderly, systematic manner. You're not going to be going out there trying to, well, I wonder if they want this color or that color, or this action or that action. They don't want any color, any action. They're not running around saying, well, I'll see if I can find a lure that's got a color and an action that I'd like to try to eat today. They don't think that way. They're not looking for a lure. They're not looking for a particular color or action. They're just not doing it. So, so when we look at it that way, that we realize that a fish never, and I mean no fish ever, goes out looking for a certain size, color, and action of a lure. He's just not doing that. So a fish never thinks in those terms. But we as fishermen, most of us, always think in nothing but in terms of size, color, and action. I wonder what size, color, or action they're looking for today. They're not ever looking for any lure. They're not ever looking for any size, color, or action of a lure. They're not doing it. They may look for something to eat, or they may just hit something to kill it out of instinct. Their instinct to kill something that's just not looking or acting natural. They may want to eat something, or they may want to kill something, but they never go looking for a lure, and they certainly never look for a certain size, color, and action. But we as fishermen, basically, that's all we do. We're just thinking in terms of size, color, and action. So the fish is going one way, and we're going another. Let's look at it logically for a minute. There's only 5 things that you can control in your fishing. 5 things and 5 things only. You cannot control the fish, you cannot control the weather, and you cannot control the water. You can't control any of those things. But the 5 things that you can control, and there's only 5, you can control the size, the color, the action, the depth, and the speed of your lure. That's all you can control. Nothing else. No matter how hard you try, there's only 5 things. Those 5 things are all you can ever control. So when you go to the water, you go out there and you're trying to figure out what it is it's going to take to put fish on the stringer. And if you take these 5 controls, you take every possible size lure, then you multiply it times every possible color. Then you take that and you multiply that times every possible action. Then you take that and multiply it times every possible depth. And you take that and multiply it times every possible speed. You come up with a figure that's astronomical. You can't even tell it what, you can't even call that number what it is. So when you go to the water, how are you going to find the right combination of this impossible number of combinations that it's going to take to put a fish on a stringer? You're going to have to begin to eliminate the things that don't matter. Okay? So, first thing we need to eliminate is size, color, and action. Forget about those three things. Basically that's the only thing most fishermen ever think about. Yet that's what you need to forget about. This is where it becomes hard for a fisherman to change his approach to his fishing. He goes out and he thinks constantly, all of his life, he's thought in terms of size, color, and action. The things that make absolutely no difference. Well, I won't say it makes no difference. It makes little difference. Little difference. Size, color, and action, generally speaking, will never make the difference in whether you catch fish or not. It might make a difference in the number of fish you catch, a small difference. It might make a difference. It'll never make the difference. If you took the world's greatest size, color, and action lure, the greatest thing ever invented, if the fish don't know what's in the water, they'll never strike it. They'll never strike it. They got to know it's there. The fish have got to know your lure is there, period. Regardless of what size, color, or action it is, they got to know it exists. And the way you do that is you concentrate on the two things that matter when it comes to catching fish: depth and speed. Those are two things, or your ticket to consistently catching fish. First off, your lure has got to be at the right depth. Your lure has got to be at the same depth that the fish is, period. The greatest size, color, and action lure that ever invented, if it's running 2 foot deep and the fish are 20 foot deep, they don't know it's there. That's just all it is to it. The most important thing is your lure has got to be at the same depth that the fish is. And then, if you will move that lure by his nose at a speed that will get a reaction out of him, you've caught him. Now, once you've located him through use of depth and speed controls, you've located him at the right depth, you move the lure by him at a speed that gets a reaction out of him, you've caught him. Then at that point, if you wish to experiment with a little bit of size, color, and action to see if that makes any difference, that's fine. But don't concern yourself with the size, color, and action until you've located him. And you'll never locate him by just trying size, color, and action. Oh my gosh, if your approach is to locating fish is through size, color, and action, you've got a job on your hands. A lengthy job, a time-consuming job. But if you'll go about it in a logical manner, to first of all try to find out what depth he is, and you do that by fishing the various depths. You fish from shallow, deep, and everything in between till you find out what depth the fish is at. And as you're constantly checking these various depths, you're constantly checking your speeds. You're varying your speed till you find the combination that works. So if you're trying to find a combination of just two things, that's easy to work with. You just work with varying your depth and varying your speeds till you find what's working. Then and only then do you experiment with size, color, and action if you want to. So when you're checking these various depths and speeds, if you've got a particular color that you like, then use it. But when it comes to color, just use the old rule: dark conditions, dark colors; bright conditions, bright colors; or just use a neutral color most of the time till you locate the fish. I pretty much narrow my choice of colors down to, I either use silver, a nickel plate of silver, or a white, or chartreuse. Basically, those three colors will cover all your color needs to as far as locating the fish. Size, color, action, they're aids. Depth and speed are your two most important controls. Concentrate on depth and speed till you find the fish, then experiment with size, color, and action if you want to. So, fish, they're a simple critter. If you provoke an instinct out of you, and that's all that you're trying to do with running the lure by him at the right speed. If you run by him at the right speed, he'll hit it out of instinct. Not that he's hungry or wanting something to eat, it's just his instinct to hit it. But and most of the time, that takes a speed that's considerably faster than what most fishermen are fishing at. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been reeling in your lure or something and find a fish and saw a fish following it? What does that tell you? What's your reaction? I can tell you what most people do when they see a fish following their lure. They think the fish followed it, but he couldn't catch it. So they slow down. The exact opposite reaction of what you need to do. If you see a fish following your lure, then violently pick up that speed, jerk it, try to get it away from him. He's just following it out of curiosity. But if he thinks it's about to get away from him, then he's going to hit it to keep it from getting away. But if he's just lollygagging along, following it around, he's not interested in hitting it. So what most people do is they slow down. Don't slow down, speed up. So what that fish that's following your lure telling you is you're fishing entirely too slow. Pick your speed up. As Buck Perry says, when it comes to speed, start with a speed that you're positive, you're pretty doggone convinced is so fast that a fish can't catch it. That's where you start. And then you keep increasing that speed at regular intervals until you find the speed that works. And you're going to find, to your surprise, that that's a whole lot faster most of the time. That's a whole lot faster than you ever thought possible. Yeah, there's a time when speed will be zero. Cold water, cold conditions, dead bait fish on the bottom might be your perfect speed. Zero. The speed that it takes to catch a fish might be zero. Or it might be 10 miles an hour. But you've got to find what's working for the fish on that day. And you do that by varying your speeds. And speed is relative to the species that you're seeking. Now, what did I mean by that? Speed is relative to the species. Some fish, just by nature, are fast. Some, by their nature, are slow. So, what might be fast for one species might be slow for another. So, when you start fishing, you've got a species in mind. Okay, and you need to know whether that fish is a fast fish or a slow fish. Don Dixon will teach you what Buck says about species in particular. the bass, the largemouth bass, is the fish that Buck, it says, is your teaching fish. That's the one you want to learn to catch first. Why? Not because he's smart or anything else. It's because he reacts in the most predictable way to weather and water and structure. He's the fish that reacts. He's the classic fish. He's predictable. You know what he's going to do. So you learn to catch him first. That's the fish you need to learn to catch first. Now, a lot of bass fishermen, they think they're fishing for the elite fish. He's the smartest. He's the toughest to catch. Well, he can be tough to catch, but it's not because he's smart. It's because he has a more drastic reaction to weather and water conditions. He turns off quicker. He shuts his mouth quicker. He retreats to the deep water quicker than the rest. And he's usually the last to show back up. He's the first to leave the shallows and the last to show back up, generally speaking. So you got to learn to catch him first. So the bass, the largemouth bass, is the fish that you need to learn to catch first, because every fish is exactly like him. Every fish is exactly like the largemouth bass, except. So you find out, you learn how to catch the largemouth first, because he does react in the most predictable manner of any fish out there, as far as the way he reacts to weather and water conditions and the way he relates to structure. So you learn to catch him first. And then every fish that swims is exactly like the largemouth bass, except. Then all you got to do is modify the way that you're fishing for bass. Modify that technique to take care of the exceptions for the fish that you're after. And then all of a sudden, you'll stop catching the bass and you'll start to catch the species that you're after. For instance, let's just say crappie, for instance. Crappie is exactly like the largemouth bass, okay, with a few exceptions. First, he's a slow fish. By nature, he's slow. By nature, the largemouth is fast. So, first thing you got to do is you got to slow your speed down a bit. Second, he tends to be smaller. He has a smaller mouth. And unlike the largemouth bass, which will hit anything that you throw in the water, basically, that's why there's so many cotton picking plugs made for the largemouth bass, because people can, they come up with a plug and they'll be able to sell it to somebody, because yes, it will catch a bass. A bass will hit anything. A crappie won't hit just anything. So anyway, the crappie, he's slower, so you got to slow down. He's smaller and he has a smaller mouth. So you need to downsize your lures. And he will tend to suspend directly above a break or a break line, or directly straight out from, in a horizontal plane, from a break or a break line, which the bass, largemouth bass, seldom if ever do. And the crappie will frequent open water. He will cruise the open water from time to time. So you take those things into consideration. You slow down, you downsize your lures, you fish not just the structure itself, the break and the break lines, but you fish directly above and right out from the breaks in the break line, and you check the open water from time to time, because he will cruise around, and all of a sudden you're not catching largemouth, you're catching crappie. So you learn to catch the largemouth first. But the largemouth is not that way because he's so smart. He's not smart. Several years ago, one of the Midwestern universities run a test on the relative intelligence of fish, and their findings were quite interesting. Actually, what they found that the most intelligent fish in freshwater is carp. And the least intelligent fish, at least of all that they tested in freshwater, was largemouth bass. And I think common sense will tell you that. People say, oh, largemouth is gamey. Well, gamey might be a polite way of saying he's a little more stupid than the rest of the fish, because he'll hit virtually anything that you put in the water. And he'll try to eat something that's bigger than he is. That don't show a lot of intelligence to me. Oh, but it does make him fun to catch, because you could catch him on a wide variety of things and a wide variety of manners and all that matters. So yeah, he's fun, but don't pat yourself on the back saying, boy, I'm fishing for the elite fish. I'm fishing for the greatest fish out there. I'm fishing for the smartest fish out there. No, you're fishing for a fish that'll hit most anything if he can see it, and he'll try to eat something bigger than he is. So that don't make him all that smart. But you have to divide your fish into categories. Are they fast fish or slow fish? You learn to catch that largemouth bass first, and then you recognize what's the difference between him and all these other species of fish. So then you start just modifying what you're doing to catch the bass, modifying it to take into consideration the exceptions concerning the target's fish of the day, whatever species you're after, and you will all of a sudden, like magic, you'll more or less quit catching the largemouth and you'll start catching the fish that you're after. It really is quite simple. It's not, and it's knowledge. It's knowledge of the fish. It's knowledge of how various ones react to various weather and water conditions, how they relate to structure, and they all are structure oriented in one way, shape, form, or fashion. Some hold tight to it, some relate to it. But you just got to learn how to catch the fish that you're after. It's knowledge. It's simple knowledge, and that knowledge can be learned. And again, I point you to Buck Perry, the father of all modern fishing. This guy figured it out. And if he figured it out and he put it in print, then that print's available from buckspoonplugs.com. And his main instructor, Don Dixon, is on YouTube teaching Buck Perry's complete school of fishing, and it's free. So can you learn to catch any kind of fish anywhere in the world, any time of the year? Yeah, you sure can. Does that mean you're going to catch them every time you go out? No, but it means you're going to be consistently successful. And you'll have in your head that if anybody on that water that day catches fish, you're going to be one of them. And you know what? You're going to be right. You're going to be right. It'll shock the fool out of you when you go and you don't catch fish and somebody else did. It'll become a shock to you. So do yourself a favor and gain the knowledge that it takes to catch any kind of fish anywhere in the world, any time of the year. It's out there. It's free. Take advantage of it. Good luck in your fishing, and we'll talk soon. Well, I came down daylight trying to beat the cold front. It rained. I did beat the front for a little while, but I didn't get to fish long at all before the front itself has come through. It's either pouring down rain or the sun peeking through. But the front has gone through for sure now. Sky's clearing up, wind's picking up, fishing had died. I wound up that little bass I just caught right there. That made fish number 20, I think. I think I kept it. It was 19, 20, 21, somewhere in there. We'll call it 20. But I'm going to troll back down this bank, back toward the load ramp. Head to the house, and we'll probably call it a day.